Welcome to the latest Motley Fool Scoreboard. I'm Anand Chokkavelu, and we've got longtime fools Karl Thiel and Keith Speights giving a 1 to 10 rating to a company some argue has been too good at its job. It's Gilead Sciences, ticker symbol GILD. Talk about the strength of Gilead's business first, including factors like industry and competition. A 10 is invincible. A 1 is hopeless. Karl's at a 7. Keith is just a skosh under at 6.5.
Yeah, so I gave Gilead Sciences a 6.5. On the positive side, the company's HIV therapy franchise continues to be very strong. Gilead is also diversified into several other areas. It's making therapies for liver diseases, oncology, inflammatory diseases. The negatives for this big drug maker, though, are that its revenue just simply isn't growing very much. Now, admittedly, that's primarily because of declining sales for Gilead's COVID-19 antiviral drug Veklury, but the company is also highly dependent on its HIV revenue. Its top-selling HIV drug is scheduled to lose patent exclusivity in 2033, and Gilead faces some strong competition in its key markets.
Gilead made its name in antivirals, in HIV in particular, but they've been trying to become an oncology company for well over a decade now, and they've arguably had more failure than success at that. I mean, they have had some success, but today, only about 12% of their revenue comes from oncology products, and that's basically all from either the CAR T products that they acquired from Kite or from Trodelvy, which they acquired through Immunomedics. And they paid a lot to get that revenue. They've also paid aggressively for some areas that didn't work out. So like their investment in CD47, which has kind of been a bust, and then their current investment in TIGIT, which is still, remains to be seen how well they do in that area, but it hasn't worked out for other companies in that space. I'm actually excited about what they're doing in TIGIT with Arcus Biosciences because it is a little different, but that I have to acknowledge that that's a pretty high risk area at this point. Nevertheless, having said all that, they have a really strong track record of in-house R&D, probably less so with their M&A. And they are just a huge force in antivirals associated with HIV, almost the way that Vertex is with cystic fibrosis. So I give the business a 7.
For management, a 10 is Warren Buffett, a 1 is Homer Simpson. Karl's at a 5. Keith, you're at a 6.
Right. Back when Gilead hired Daniel O'Day as CEO, and I think this was back in early 2019, I viewed it as a good move, and I still do for the most part. Objectively, though, I can only give O'Day and the rest of Gilead's management a score of 6. 78% of employees on Glassdoor approve of O'Day. That shows many insiders at least think he's doing a good job. And I thought management's decision to acquire CymaBay Therapeutics was a smart move, but I'm not sure about that price tag of $4.3 billion. I think Karl was right. M&A hasn't been a strong point for Gilead in recent years. But the main knock against O'Day, in my view, is simply that Gilead stock has underperformed the S&P 500 since he took the helm.
Yeah, Daniel O'Day came over to the company from Roche. He has an undergraduate degree in biology, but he's basically a business guy, not a scientist. And so I think his tenure is kind of marked by these big ticket M&A deals. And, you said you had doubts about the $4.3 billion spent on CymaBay. They paid $21 billion for Immunomedics. I just think that's hard to justify. I mean, they have great hopes for Trodelvy, and it is a successful product, but not, it has also sort of flamed out in lung so far. I just think they kind of overpaid for that. And I can really only give them a 5 looking at his tenure.
I remember one of the old arguments for Gilead, years ago was they've been good at acquisitions and they've got enough flexibility to do more. Looking back now, sounds like neither of you were super impressed right now with the prior ones.
Yeah,
so far.
Not over the last several years, no.
All right, let's move on to financials. A 10 is a fortress. A 1 is yikes. Both of you have 7s here, Keith.
Yeah, so Gilead Sciences continues to generate strong cash flow. It's highly profitable. The company's balance sheet is solid. They have debt, but it's a manageable level of debt. The strikes against this company, though, are that its revenue and earnings simply aren't growing much, and it's hard for me to give Gilead a higher score than 7 because of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty much just going to echo what Keith is saying. I mean, if you look at the balance sheet, you'll see they have like $25 billion in debt, which sounds like a lot, but if you look at it as a total debt to EBITDA, it's around 1.8 times, and so that's not raising any alarms. They could, take on more if they wanted to for some strategic acquisition, and in the meantime they have, plenty of cash available, and they're highly profitable. So I'd say they're doing fine on the financials.
Karl, let's talk valuation. How well will Gilead Sciences stock do over the next 5 years? How safe is it? 10's a sure thing, 1's a lottery ticket.
Yeah, so I feel like I've just kind of said lukewarm things about the company so far, but I do think the stock is relatively cheap. The vast majority of their HIV revenue, over $13 billion, is coming from Biktarvy, which I don't think is going to see generic competition before 2036. I think Keith said 2033, so we'll have to compare notes on that, because sometimes coming up with patent expirations is an art. But that's a fair degree of protection for Gilead as kind of a stable, slow growth business, and they do have time to secure their next act. In addition, they've had some pretty big asset write-downs, which is kind of harkening back to what I said about maybe overpaying for some deals. And those have tended to understate reported earnings versus cash flow, even once you adjust out stock-based competition. So I think the stock could see appreciation of 10% to 15% annually, with honestly even potentially bigger upside if they see some success in the pipeline, say if they manage to break into TIGIT in a way that nobody else has been able to. And the safety is relatively high at a 7.
I'm going to go with a growth of 5% to 10% over the next 5 years. I think it's possible they could do higher, as Karl was saying. Gilead does have a new version of Sunlenca coming out, hopefully in the U.S. soon. This drug offers a twice per year dosing, so that'll be a big plus. They have Livdelzi, which should continue to pick up some market momentum in treating primary biliary cholangitis. Gilead has a new cell therapy and an added indication for Trodelvy that could win approvals next year. But the new version of Sunlenca could cannibalize sales of the existing version. Veklury, the COVID drug, is probably going to continue to be a drag. The good news is that I do feel relatively confident that Gilead could deliver growth of at least in that 5% to 10% range. So I'm going to put a safety score of 7.
Let's move on to everyone's favorite topic. Karl, is there a company in Gilead space that you like better?
Oh, I like to make it a challenge to pick company really as comparable as I can. So in this space, so I picked a company that made its names in antivirals like Gilead and hopes to move in a big way into oncology like Gilead, and similarly has a really strong balance sheet. And so I'll say BioNTech. I think BioNTech is not, certainly they're not profitable at the moment. They're not nearly as diverse, but I do like their pipeline, and I like their valuation here.
I like Karl's pick of BioNTech, and I agree with his rationale there entirely. I'm taking a different slant here, a different angle. I think a lot of investors are buying Gilead because they like the dividend. So I think this is a stock that's attracting a lot of income investors. So if you're an income investor, I think, and you're looking at buying Gilead Sciences, I think maybe you want to take a look at AbbVie. The ticker there is ABBV. The company is a dividend king, offers a higher dividend yield than Gilead. And AbbVie has done a great job, in my opinion anyway, of navigating the loss of exclusivity for Humira, and is well positioned for growth over the next 5 years.
Thank you to both Keith and to Karl. They've given Gilead Sciences an all right overall score of 6.5 out of 10. Look out for a new scoreboard every market day at 7 p.m. Eastern. Next up is Kiniksa Pharmaceuticals. Till then, Fool on. Anyway, before this gets too dark, let's get on this.